And I've got together these little, again, some more music for you, which I put in order, from simple to hard. And I want to show you these two devices, which are in the back of the book. But when you Xerox them and put two of them together, you get yourself here a really nice workstation. And what this is the slide, my intervalometer, and here's a regular keyboard, and you have your sharps and your flats, depending on which key. So let's say I want to do something with the major slider, and I want to play something like E flat. Okay. So what I do is I put the number 1 on E flat, and just put it above the flat, like that, so it blocks out all the sharps. And now what it's going to do is it's going to show you that spelling. So you've got E flat on the number 1, you got F for the number 2, 3 is G, and 4 becomes A flat. Okay. And then you've got B flat, C, D, and E flat. So there's your 3 flats. You've got a 1 flat, you've got a 4 flat, and a 5 flat. And that would be the E flat scale. Right. So you see it helps you spell, and it'll take it all the way. Now let's say we're doing something like D, which we know has 2 sharps. Right? If I just take this and put this down here on D, under the sharps like that, block the flats, now you can see that D is the number 1, the number 2 is E, the number 3 becomes F sharp, right? The number 4 is G, the number 5 is A, the number 6 is B, and then C sharp. So there's your sharps, C sharp and F sharp. There's your 2 sharps. It confirms that that's the key of D. So you can do this to find the spelling for any major scale. Now, here's the next trick. The blue stripes are a flat 3, a flat 5, and a flat 7, and those are the blues notes. When you're playing the blues scale always goes,
right, I know.
It goes 1, 3 flat, right?
Right.
4, 5 flat, I like to think of it 5 flat, and then 5, and then you have flat 7 and 1 again. So in D, that would be playing the D, then playing F for your flat 3, your 4 would be G, then you play A flat, and then A, and then C and D, and those would be the notes in that scale. So you just basically cut out the number 2, right? Because they don't use that. They're skipping over that. And 4 sharp or 5 flat, 5 are done in a row. Boom, boom, boom. Those 3. Then again, there's a big gap of a minor third here between 5 and 7. To the C and D. And that gives you your letter names, and then you can do that. So again, if you want to find the blues scale in anything, you know. Now another thing is the C scale. If we look at the C scale and we look at it as a blues pattern, you'll see here that we have C is 1, 2 becomes D, and then we have E flat. That's our flat 3. Then you have F, F sharp or G flat, G, then you skip the 6 and go to the 7 flat, which is B flat, and C. So there's your letter names, C, E flat, F, G flat, G, B flat, and C. Now an interesting thing about the blues scale is it's actually half of a natural minor scale. The 3 flat and the 7 flat are in a natural minor scale. The only thing you have in a natural minor scale you don't have in the blues scale is a flat 6. That's the only difference. So it turns out that if I try to spell the C minor scale, I'm going to get the same numbers. So if I turn over to the minor and set that on C, watch what happens. The number 1 now in minor is still C. Now the number 3 in minor is naturally an E flat, because the 3 is naturally flatted in the minor scale. Right. You still have your 4, which is F, your 5, which is flat, and your 5 flat, your 5 and your 5 flat, still the same notes there, right? So 4 sharp, or 4, 5 flat, 5. By the way, blues Jazz musicians always refer to it as 5 flat, but classical musicians refer to it as 4 sharp, because they see the 4 sharp as a tritone, where in jazz we're always flatting things, making them half diminished or full diminished, so we think of it as 5 flat, and that's the only difference between the two. So classical musicians will always refer to it as 4 sharp, and jazz musicians will always refer to it as 5 flat, because we put 5 flats in every fucking thing, you know, right? Okay, and then here's your 7, which is naturally minor, you see, so there's your B flat. So the interesting thing is the C minor scale, if you play the pentatonic, 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, 1, you get exactly the same thing as you would from the blues scale.
Right. The only difference is the 4th is raised.
Yeah, you have the 6 here, which is flatted, normally in the minor scale, see, so we'd have an A flat. In the major scale, looking at the blues, there would be a 6 would be A. That's the only difference. Now, another interesting thing about that, the only place where that naturally occurs on the keyboard happens to be E flat. And again, this is why horn players like to play in E flat, because they can switch between major and minor quite easily, and they only have to adjust 2 notes. So watch what happens when I put the number 1, the minor, right here. Right there, you can see all of the black keys now. There's your 1, there's your 3, there's your 4, 4 sharp, your 5, and your 7, and your 1 turns out being all the black keys. So if you play E flat, all the black keys, you're playing the natural blues scale. And all you have to do is add in this half step here between the 4 and 5. You get that 5 flat, A, and you've got the normal blues scale. So this is something that people don't realize, that when you number the minor scale properly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the way it should be numbered, which most jazz books, they always refer to it as the 6th mode. They always refer to that as the Aeolian mode, or the minor mode, which is from 6 to 6. They are always numbering it from 6 to 6. Well, if you do that, the chords don't make any sense, right? So if you turn the 6 into a 1, normally minor, label it this way as natural minor, then what happens is your 1, 4, 5 chord progressions will become obvious, and you'll start seeing your 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1 chord progressions in minor. The same chord progressions in minor that we use in major, it's just that because they're always labeling the minor using the major numbers, you don't see it, and it confuses people. So this is one of the early things that Angel and I discovered 25 years ago, that the natural minor scale, except for that one note, is the blues scale. And it makes more sense if we label things as natural minor. So this will allow you to spell anything. Now, here's another thing that people don't know. They say there's 12 keys, but that's not true. The only reason we say that is because the piano has a compromise built into it. D sharp and E flat are the same note on the piano. But when you have a non-fretted instrument like violin, cello, viola, they don't do that. D sharp is actually higher in pitch on the instrument than the E flat. These are not in the same spot. If I go for a D sharp on my violin, I actually have to go a little bit to this side of the note. And when I go for E flat, I actually go lower. So D sharp is higher in pitch than E flat. They're not the same place. They made that compromise so they'd have a single button to push on the piano, and that's why they call it equal temperament. But that's not what really happens in the real world if you're playing non-fretted instruments, okay? So the truth is there aren't 12 keys. It turns out there are 35 keys. There are 35 keys. Now this is something that no music teacher in the world seems to know except me, okay? And I can spell all 35 keys just off the top of my head, because getting this pattern in my head, I can move it and start at any reference I want, okay? If I want to, for instance, everybody knows how to spell B flat. I'm sure your teacher knows how to spell B flat, but you ask your teachers how to spell A sharp. Just ask them, how do you spell the A sharps? And watch what happens to their face. They'll just go, what the fuck? And then I always say to the teacher, well, isn't it on the piano? Don't they have an A sharp on the piano? Well, yeah, they do. Well, then how come you don't know how to spell it? You only know how to spell B flat. You don't know how to spell A sharp. The reason they don't know is because A sharp has 10 sharps. Anything past 7 sharps, which is as far as most people study in school, that's it. So theoretically, they don't take the system as far as it can go before it breaks down. If you do, you would know there aren't 12 keys, there's 35. Now, why are there 35? It's simple. There are 7 letter names, correct? I can have an A, I can have an A sharp, and I can have an A double sharp, because we have double sharps. I can have A flat, or A double flat, which would be the same as G, but it would be spelled A double flat, and it would be on the A line. So if I can have A double flat, A sharp, and A double sharp, that's 5 possible keys, right? Multiply that by 7, and what do you got? 35. And this is something that nobody but I seem to know. Here's another trick if you want to find out if a guy really knows what they're doing. Everybody knows that the E flat scale has 3 flats. Ask them about D sharp and watch their jaw drop again. I went to Stanford University, where those teachers have PhDs in music, and I asked them, how do you spell the D sharp scale? And the guy just looked at me like a deer in headlights. And I go, well, it only has 9 sharps. And he went, yeah? I go, but yeah? you know what I'm saying? It's like they only go as far as they're comfortable. Now here's what happens in America because of it. You learn C, then you learn G, then they teach you F, so you got 1 sharp, 1 flat, right? Then they teach you D, so you got 2 sharps. And then they teach you 2 flats, B flat, on and on. Well, what happens when we get to 4 sharps? When you get to 4 sharps, people learn to read that. But when you get to 5 sharps, the key of B, nobody learns to read that. To carry 5 sharps in your head and modify them as you go out of 7 possible notes. That's why reading is so goddamn cumbersome and why people can't do it with the ABC system. It just starts to get more and more complicated and collapses under its own weight. It's like a big Lego thing. You pull one out and the whole fucking thing falls down. See what I'm getting at? Where with the number system, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 never change no matter where we do or what the reference is, doesn't matter. And we can use that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to figure out the ABCs. If I'm doing something like B sharp, or say I'm doing the A sharp scale, right? So I put this here, and I say my 1 is A sharp, then my next note has to be a B something, and if we look to where this is, it's over here, so this would be B sharp. I wouldn't call it C. Then I have to call the C something, because I can't skip to D. So for the number 3, I have to call this C sharp sharp. So it has to be C double sharp. So if we're doing A sharp, I've got to have a C double sharp in there. And you'll find later you'll also wind up with an F double sharp and blah, blah, and you wind up with 10 fucking sharps. And nobody I know can read past 5 sharps. I mean, I know classical musicians who've been playing for 50 fucking years, and you throw B in front of them and they just freeze. So if it's got 5 sharps, 6 sharps, 7 sharps, which is what you should know in college, they never learn to read past that. All of that music that Bach wrote in those keys has never been played. There are very few musicians that play. So there's still a lot of Bach out there that ain't been played because people can't read past 4 fucking sharps. Okay? I can read in A double sharp, which has 17 sharps. And I write music in A double sharp just so people who do ABC can't play my music. They have to do it by the number or they can't get anywhere. That's how I grew up with my wife, Angel, of her habit of reading ABC as a classical pianist. I kept writing things in A double sharp, putting them in front of her with the 17 sharp. She was so overwhelmed, she'd just go, oh, where's 1? Oh, there it is. And then she'd start reading by number. You know, it forced her into doing it. And when she realized, oh, this really does have this advantage, I can read all these complicated keys, well, she became hooked, right? And then she's now my best disciple. So this will allow you to spell
figure out anything.
All 35 keys. Yes, in anything with double, and there'll be, when you're doing things like A double sharp, there'll be triple sharps in there, and you can have things with triple flats. But then, when it comes back to C, the whole thing resets to 0, and it starts all over again. So this will help you find the major scale in any key. It helps you with your spelling, okay? And the first half of my book, the first 10 pages, deals with this on how to spell all the possible scales, including the way out ones, okay? So if somebody says to you there's 12 keys, you say, sorry, there's 35. And they go, no, there's only 15. I haven't had to study 15 for college. You say, well, you didn't get past 4 sharps, did you? And they'll look at you and go, well, yeah, I did. Okay, well, there you go. All right?
Well, you know, with one of my music teacher, he's a year younger than I am. I'm 70. And
I just turned 70. June 10th, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so we were both born in 46, huh?
45.
45, yeah.
I said, well, you know, Dennis, you know, I know how to, I got this way of figuring out the blues scale rather than just rote memory. He said, well, how are you doing that? I said, well, you just take the key, take the key signature of that key, and basically you're going to go, you're going to flat the third, and you're going to flat the seventh, and the fourth you're going to raise.
Right.
And he kind of looked at me, and he was trying to figure it out, you know?
Right.
Because I hate memorizing stuff.
Me too, and I'd rather memorize the numeric pattern, which is applicable to all 35 keys, than memorizing all 35 keys. Yeah. Because I actually tried memorizing them all, and it was like, it blew my mind. You just...
my problem is I forget.
I tell people, if you remember when you were in 5th and 6th grade and they made you memorize the times tables up to 12, how long did that take? And people go, oh, 2 or 3 years, and I go, now, 35 scales, how long do you think that's going to be? Well, 5 fucking years at least, just to memorize that shit. Well, it turns out by using this, you don't need to memorize it at all. You just memorize the one pattern, and that's it. Now, the thing I want to show you here is this was for the tenor sax. I have one for the alto, but it got destroyed in my computer. But the only difference is that middle C is not here on your soprano sax. Middle C is over here. This is C4.
Right.
So this is where middle C would be. So this note D is actually middle C concert pitch.
Right.
And A440 is not up here, but A440 is right there. So that means that this B is actually A440. So if you play B, that's the note to tune on.
Right.
For tuning. Okay. And that's the only difference in the scale. Otherwise, the fingerings are the same. Another thing is all the saxophones start with the B flat, B, C, D. They all use the same clef. They all use the treble clef.
Right. And
they all read in the same bandwidth, even though we know they're stacked a half an octave apart from each other. And this is why composers hate writing for saxophones. Because you have 3 different keys for the 4 fucking saxophones, right? And they all look like they're in the key of C, in the same register. And they're not. They're splattered over 3 octaves on the damn keyboard. Right. So figuring out where they are on this has always been trouble for composers. Because you write it out on the staff, and then you have to transpose it for the E flat, and you have to transpose it for the B flat, and if you have a C melody or F melody, this gets very complicated. I've watched composers just pull their hair out over writing for saxophones, okay? What this does is this eliminates the problem. So we've been playing the G scale, all right? So let's take the number, your G scale, and set it right here. We put the slider right in between the keyboard and the fingerings. And what you'll see is when I put this on your G, we look down on the keyboard and we see it's actually F. So the G scale on the saxophone is actually the F scale on the keyboard.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Concert pitch.
Right.
So you can see the transposition is just right there. This is what the saxophone notation would be, but this is what the actual keyboard is.
Right.
So you can tell
yeah,
it.
I've been working on that. And in fact, I was, every day my routine is to, I have this little program, and it goes to, the teaches perfect pitch, and it plays C, and so I'll start out and play my D and my saxophone, and I'll try singing it. I'll sing it.
Right, try singing it, right. Perfect pitch for us people with relative pitch is almost impossible. I've got a few tricks. I found out that the electricity in my house that we're hearing this buzz is B flat. So everywhere you're in the city, if you listen to a transformer, you're hearing B flat, which should be the C on your instrument.
Right. So
you could tune to a transformer outside. Anywhere there's electricity, you hear your refrigerator, the motor, hums at 60 cycles, which is B flat. Okay, so let's take a look here at this. So it says that the first number one should be this fingering, just those three fingers, and that is correct. That's what you're doing to get your G, which would be concert F. Then the next one, you're just picking up one finger, right?
Right.
For the number two, you're picking up a third finger. For the number four, you're crossing the fingers, right? Doing that crossing thing there. So that's your C, which is actually B flat on the piano. Then the number five, you're closing them all off again, playing your D. Then for the number six, you're lifting one up. For the number seven, there it is, that hole in the middle, just like that one, for that group. And then your number one, and back to just the three things. So you see it's showing you the fingering pattern for the key of G saxophone, which is F concert pitch. Now, we can move this anywhere to get any key you want. If you want to play in something like F sharp, you go here to F sharp, you put the 1 on F sharp, which is going to be E in concert pitch, and then you'd start with that middle finger on the F sharp, then you'd go to that one where you have that with the little side machine, see? Then you'd skip to here where you have that, and there's your B flat, your B flat, which is really A flat. And then one hole, and then all of them open, and then here with the half hole down there, and then here with just these two open, and then that middle one, and boom, you'd be playing an F sharp, which is a very difficult key for most people. But if you look at it this way, you'll see the fingering pattern is pretty simple. And usually there's some kind of a mechanical pattern to it. If you could see that pattern to help you remember it, that's it. So again, you can look up any major scale, the fingering for any major scale with this thing. If you turn it over, minor scale. You want to play in something like A minor, you go over here, set the number 1 underneath your A, it'll show you the A, and then the 2 will be here, and then flat 3 will be there, your 4, your 5, your flat 6, your natural flat 7, and your 1. And there it is. That's also giving you the blues scale. And again, that would be the same if I use the blue side. I did that. There's my blue note, my blue 3, which would be the same as the normal 3 there. So in minor, they naturally have the flat 3. Here we have to create it. So this guy here will help you figure out any major or minor key that you want, right? Yeah, that's got all these fingering charts. I'm starting to create them. On the back here, it explains how to do it.
Sure.
And other ways of applying it. And then in one of the things I gave you in the back, there's 4 sheets with just formulas for different scales. And again, you can use this, set it up in any key you want, and then work out the notes for the formula. Try playing that scale, and you'll have some fun playing in a different scale. There's a lot of really interesting Hungarian and Gypsy and Byzantine scales, which are the kinds of things you've heard Gypsy violin players play. And those are some really hot jazz stuff. That's the stuff that Grappelli used to play all the time with Django, and those are really fun scales. Okay, so that's that. Now, let's start with some long tones to get you going, and then we're going to show you this exercise here, which is the singing exercise that we're going to learn there, and this is going to kind of learn to tune your ear to the numbers, okay? And this is the only exercise you need to do. It has all the major and all the minor intervals in it. So let's start with just playing your G, and just play your open G, and just try to play and hold the tone. Good. And try not to, that's really good. I call this modulation when you get wah, 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 and wobbles. No, I don't. That's what I'm saying. When you play a tone, you want to get a pure tone and not get any warble or wobble or distortion in it. So
it's because I've been working on it.
Yeah. Let's hear that G again. That's really nice. No modulation, no wobble, wobble. That's very good. Okay, now here what I want you to do. Play that G again, and after you start to sound it, start to make it softer and softer and softer and softer. About to cut out. Okay. So that's as little air as you can put before the reed cuts out, and that's what I want you to do. Play a nice loud note, then get soft until the reed, softer, softer, day, I want you to do that as a warm-up. Play a long note, and then get it softer, and see if you can every day try to get it a little softer and softer and softer. Until you can get it so soft that you keep the same tone, you don't hear any air in it at all, and it's so quiet someone would have to put their ear right next to you to hear it. Okay? Good. And another thing I've noticed is as you're getting softer, you're building up pressure in the top of your chest. I can feel you going, trying to hold that note down, right? The secret is to let air out of your nose. What happens is when you build up pressure, okay, this pressure, it tends the reed to go sharp, makes you go sharp. And so what happens is, if you want to get even softer, you breathe through your mouth and release air through your nose at the same time. You'll be able to get half as loud. Releasing air through your nose. Hard to do. So getting used to doing that. Again, so do this. Here, feel. Put your hand right here. Okay, now watch.
Okay.
See what's happening when I get soft? I release that pressure. And that'll take a while because you're so used to keeping your head tight. So if I want to get really soft, I'm going to release air through my nose at the same time I'm breathing. Okay. And you're not going to keep the throat. And what's happening is in the back of your throat, you're keeping it so tight and constricted that you can't get the air out your head. Now that's something that's going to take a while to practice. But you play a loud note, and then as you get softer, the softer you get, you very slowly release air from your nose. So what happens is more and more air comes out of your nose, less and less air can go across the reed, and the reed will vibrate at a softer and softer and softer and softer. You'll be able to feel that point when you're starting to get soft and you start to breathe out your nose. You can feel that point where the tension has to be broken in order to get softer. Okay? So the way you can get really, really soft is to slightly relieve the pressure from the sinuses by breathing through your nose. And learning to breathe out of your nose at the same time you're playing is a major, major step forward in being able to control soft, gentle, quiet tone. Now what happens later when you get used to that is you find you can also do it when you're playing loud. You can release just a little bit of air from your nose and quiet things down. Then shut off your nose and it gets loud again. And by opening and closing your sinus, you can get a lot of breath control. That's subtle things that you don't have to do with all of your lung power. Okay? And this being able to release that pressure through your sinus is a big one. It's a big one. And it takes about 5 or 6 months to catch on. So be patient with yourself. Okay, Walter? This one is going to take some time. But you will see the advantage. When you get to the point where you can breathe mostly out of your nose and just a little bit of air goes up and you can play the reed so soft and so gentle that people can barely hear it, then whenever you want to add a little bit of air, you can bend that reed and you can create all these little subtle nuances that are making the reed sound like it's crying or like it's talking, or all these little emotional things that we get. You know, when we're upset, our stomach flutters, and you want to get that sound into the air, so all those emotions come through. The only way to do that is to get rid of all that back pressure that you have by opening your sinus. So then when you learn that you can open your sinus and still play, you'll have more breath control and much more subtle breath control. And again, that's a secret that very few people seem to know. It took me 8 years of playing the horn before I arrived at that point. So then I found that if I turn my students onto it right away, it only takes them about 4 or 5 months to catch on, and then all of a sudden, boom, they have more tone control and breath control than they can imagine. This thing of allowing this back pressure to build up really works against you. Really works against you. And subtly. Now, if you want to learn circular breathing, which I learned from Rahsaan Roland Kirk, who's a good friend of mine for most of my life, up until he died in 73. He taught me how to do circular breathing.
I practiced that, but I couldn't. I really couldn't do it.
Well, it's the same thing. What you have to do is be able to hold a pocket of air behind your ears, basically, And then what happens is as you release that air, you have to inhale at the same time. And it's one little tiny... When I met Ross on Roland Kirk, he wouldn't tell me how he did it. What he did is he told me what's called a koan. He said, young man, I breathe with my ears. And I said, what the fuck are you... He says, I breathe with my ears. And then he made me try to figure that out for 2 years. 2 years he would not tell me what the fuck he meant by that. And for 2 years I kept staring at myself in the mirror and trying all kinds of weird things to see if I could figure out how to breathe with my fucking ears. And then one day, it just came to me like that. And I walked up to him and I went, like that. And he went, you got it, man. You got it. So what I'm doing is I'm letting the air out of my mouth without actually breathing. And then I'm inhaling at the same time. So as I'm inhaling, I'm breathing out. So I go... And if you can do that, that'll lead you to circular breathing. Tough idea, isn't it? What's happening is you actually are using your ear muscles to push the air that's in the back of your throat out. And you're allowing the ear muscles to push the air out without using your lungs. So all the reserved air that you have in your cheeks is coming out for just a moment, and in that little moment, that your lips are doing it by themselves, you have time to take a little breath through your nose. So since you're not actually breathing, you're allowing the air that's trapped in your throat to relax and come out. It takes about 1 second to release that air, and in that 1 second you can inhale through your nose. And one thing you can do is you can take a soda straw and put it in water and blow, and then inhale through your nose at the same time. And just learn to do that, where you go, and at the same time. So I like to buzz my lips and inhale. And that's all you need to do. I swear to God, that's all you need to do. You do that over and over and over until one day all of a sudden you make the connection that you can just breathe, and then when you stop breathing, your mouth relaxes. All your internal ear muscles and your cheek muscles push the air out while you're breathing in through your nose. If you ever watch Ross on Roland Kirk, he does this. He has these big cheek muscles like Bucky Beaver. And what he does, he just collapses, just like I went like that. Just collapses that. So there's no breathing involved. Learning to release air without breathing, and then doing that with your internal is the secret. So he was right. You do breathe with your ears, but it's a very subtle, it's a subtle distinction, and it's very difficult for people to figure it out.
What do you call it?
Breathing with your ears. That's how he taught it to me. He said, just breathe with your ears, kid. It took me 2 years to figure out what the fuck he meant by that. But I did finally figure it out. So you're letting the air release itself without using your lungs. And then if you can inhale while you're doing that. So now I can exhale and inhale simultaneously. So I can play a note like this and inhale. Watch, I can go. And that took a long time. By the way, it's easier to do on the alto sax because you don't need the pressure on the reed. On this instrument, it's a lot harder to do because of the pressure. The reed won't vibrate on its own. So the problem is you've got to kind of keep that pressure going. You'll find on other instruments like the alto and the tenor sax, the bigger the reed, like on the tenor sax, the easier it is to do the circular breathing. Because the reed, when it starts vibrating, it'll vibrate on its own for a half a second or so when you stop breathing, and that gives you just enough time to inhale through your nose. A didgeridoo, the reason the didgeridoo works so well is because the pipe is so long that there's a lot of back pressure, And so when you stop breathing, it takes a while for the air to get out of the tube, and that gives you just enough time to inhale. So that's why it's good to practice on a didgeridoo or some instrument like a bassoon. A big, long, huge woodwind, or something with a big reed like a tenor, a lot easier to do that. Okay? And then once you get used to it and you learn to do it, then you can go to smaller and smaller reeds. You can go from the bassoon down to the oboe, and you can go from the tenor or the bari all the way down to the soprano. It is harder to do on the soprano than anything else. Okay? So that's that secret. So hitting a note and then getting soft. And now let's try it on every note in the scale. Okay? Try your G. Play it nice note and then get soft. Don't be afraid to start it loudly. Good. Now the next note. That one's a little shakier. You can hear it. Next one. Relax. See how it cuts off? So those higher notes are going to take a little bit more relaxing to do. And so I want you to be able to do this on every note on the G scale. Okay. So that's warm up that way. Now those exercises I gave you yesterday, I don't want you to do all of them. What I want you to do is take one of them, like the first one, which is the 2-note phrase, and play that as a warm-up every day before you start playing for a month. Okay? Then at the end of the month, you should have it down. Then go to the next one, the one with the triplets. Right? And then do that every day. Just do one of those exercises every day as a warm-up. Right?
Now, when you say get it down, you mean memorize it?
Yeah, or not just that, but I mean be able to play it comfortably. So you want to be able to go like that instead of going
okay, smoothly.
Just smoothly, right? So you go. Play this every day for, say, a month. At the end of the month, you should be pretty good with this, and you should be able to do these 3 things with it. Loud, soft, long, short, speed up, slow down. And give yourself a month of using that as a warm-up.
Sure.
Then what you do is the following month, go do the triplet pattern. And then the following month, do the one where you're doing every other note, where you're doing triplet, where you're doing thirds, right? And then the following month, it'll take you 6 months, 5 to 6 months, to go through all of those exercises and get them down so they're smooth and easy to play. And I don't know of anything that will develop technique for you faster. And because you're doing the numbers in your head, you're teaching your fingers on a psychological thing, subconsciously, to go to those places every time you think that number. So what happens is when you think the number, your fingers are just going to fall in place automatically. It's going to become automated and subconscious really fast. You don't have to try to make it that way. It just happens on its own. Okay. So that. Now here's this exercise. And what happens is if you play the scale and you play 1 and then you go to 2, then you come back to 1 and then go to 3, and then 1 to 4, 1 to 5, 1 to 6, 1 to 7, and then 1 to 1. What's happening is 1 to 2 is a major second. 1 to 3 is a major third. 1 up to 4 is a perfect fourth. 1 up to 5 is a perfect fifth. I still consider it a major, right? 1 to 6 is a major sixth, and 1 to 7 is a major seventh, and then 1 to 1 is an octave. So what you're doing is you're hearing all of the major intervals. And the exercise is just like this. With your G.
Now, I thought that when we were talking, I was listening to your videos. I thought that I thought that it was only, and there was something about, oh, okay, it's the triad thing. The triads are only major in 1, 4, and 5.
Yes, that's right. Because you have 3 triads. The first triad is always a major third, and the second one is a minor third naturally. I'll show you why that happens so you can see it on the keyboard. But what's happening here is from 1 to 2 is a major second. Then this one, that's a major third. Fourth. Down. Fifth. Sixth. Then bum. There you go. And then you do it backwards. I go. So I'm going 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6, 1, 7, 1, 1. Now I'm going to go that same thing, but I'm going to do it backward. So every time you compare one of the notes in the scale to the note on the bottom, you're creating a major interval. And you should get to the point where, what I do is I sing it, I go 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6, 1, 7, 1, 1, and that's how I get the scale in my ear. And what's happened now is after about 4 or 5 months of doing that, my ear just automatically picks up on the numbers because your ear is hearing the interval distances anyway. It's the only way your ear can hear something. Your ear can't hear ABC unless you have perfect pitch. But having relative pitch, you can listen to the proportions, and you can get these proportions right. So going 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6, 1, 7, 1, 1, 1, 7, 1, 6, 1, 5, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 1. Not just saying all of the major intervals.
Now, how did you get to the minor? You did the same thing.
Now, what we do is we do the reverse. We go from the top note down to 7 is a minor second. Going from the top note 1 to the 6 is a minor third. Going from here to the 5th is a 4th. Going from 1 to 4 is a 5th. Going from 1 down to 3 is a minor 6th. From 1 down to 2 is a minor 7th. And then from 1 to 1. So what happens is if I do this, if I go, that's a minor second, minor third, minor third.
Oh, okay. So let me mark that down. So this is a second,
minor second, third. Minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, 1 to 3, minor sixth, and a minor seventh from 1 down to 2 in your octave. So you see what you're getting is the minor second, the minor third, your fourth or fifth, the minor sixth, and the minor seventh. Where if we're going the other way, there are major intervals. The strangest thing in the world. Because it starts out with a major second going up, but it starts with a minor second coming down. So going up the scale, comparing the bottom note to the top note, all those intervals are major. But comparing the top octave to the notes below, they're all minor. And what happens is your ear will learn to hear the difference after a while, just naturally, without you having to work on it. You don't have to do this thing you're doing with perfect pitch, where you have to try to, memorize a pitch in your head. What you do is you'll hear any old pitch, and then you'll be able to relatively sing these intervals up and down. So I sing 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6, 1, 7, 1, 1, then backwards. 1, 7, 1, 6, 1, 5, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 1. So the whole exercise is like this. There, I've just gotten all the major and all the minor.
Yeah, I think that this is. I mean, I'll have to keep working on this. The thing that I'm having trouble doing right now. I'm just relative beginner, is coming up with the number one on a scale. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Whatever scale you're playing, the root is the number one. So
yeah.
You just have to learn to hear that, hum that in your head, and then learn to compare the other intervals to it. Because it's about proportion, actually, or what they call ratios in math. These are ratios that are being expressed, not fixed numbers. This fixed number system, which is good for people with perfect pitch, is only about 1 out of every 200,000 people. So they're lucky. And music theory, by the way, was written for them. Pythagoras was only let people who had perfect pitch into a school because they had to sing a song by ear in order to get in. And they had to draw a pentagram on their hand. So they'd go up to the door and knock on the door. Guy would look through the little thing, like a speakeasy. They'd show the pentagram on their hand, and then they would expect them to sing the pentatonic scale that went with that pentagram. And if you could do that, then they'd let you into their university. See? And what happened is universities are still that way. They're ivory tower elitists that have developed music theory for the last 2,000 years for people with perfect pitch. But 99% of us have relative pitch, and there's no system for that. This is the system for that. And this works, and it does what your ear is doing naturally. And we want to train your eye to do the same thing. Let's try this exercise in your key of G. So I'll play it going. Then backwards. Now in my mind, I'm actually saying 1, 2, and then I'm thinking 1, then I think 3, and then play the note. So what I'm thinking, I can confirm, right? And then I go, here comes the right, here's the 4th, twinkle star, here's the 5th. So if I go 1, 6, 4, where's that? And B, C. So the 6th. The 7th, then the octave. Then coming down, I think 1, 7, 1, 6, 1, 5, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 1. You can see what I played matched my voice. So I sing it and then play it, and sing it and play it. And what happens is you get your voice in tune, and your horn in tune, and your ear in tune. And they'll all start to do the same thing. When your ear and your eye and your hand are all feeling the same interval, you're locked in. You're just locked in, and you're off and running. Okay. Now, very quickly, what I want to do is we're just going to start playing some songs from now until Monday. Right? And I've got the songs laid out from very simple, all diatonic, then they add 1 sharp, and then 2 sharps, and 3 sharps, and then we add 1 flat, 2 flats, 3 flats. When you go through music, you can look at the music, and if you don't see any sharps or flats coming in up during the music, like if I look through here, you see I don't see any sharps or flats written in along here. I can tell right away that it's diatonic. If there's no sharps or flats written in other than in the key signature, then it is diatonic. It's just going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you can pick these things out pretty quickly. Now what we want to do is we want to train your eyeball to see these distances without you thinking. If you're actually thinking about it, you're using your left brain. If you're not thinking about it and you just feel it, you're using your right brain. So I'm going to do a little flashcard thing with you. And all we're going to look at is 3 intervals. We're going to look at the thirds. We're going to look at thirds, which always look like this. They go from a space to a space or a line to a line. They have nothing in between them. There's no room in between them. When you open it up a little bit, like a 5, it goes from a line to a line or a space to a space. There's always goes from a line, there'll be a line in between. If it goes from a space to a space, there'll be a whole space in between. So you can tell that, that's bigger, right?
Right.
And then sevenths.
You have 2 spaces.
Yeah, exactly. 2 spaces. So I just think of it as this: small, medium, and large. And that's all you got to think in your head. Is it small, medium, and large? If it's small, you say 3. If it's medium, you say 5. And if it looks too damn big, it's a 7. And that's all there is to start with, all right? Now what I'm going to do is hold up a card, and then you tell me what the interval is.
Third.
Exactly. Now this one is,
7.
yeah, it's too damn big, right?
9.
No, we only have 3, 5, and 7.
7.
Exactly. So it's a 7. All right. Third.
Third. Fifth.
Mm-hmm.
Fifth.
Yeah, just guess them.
Third.
Mm-hmm.
The 7.
Right.
Fifth. Third. 7. Fifth. Fifth. Third. Fifth. Third.
You got everyone right. Now, do you notice that the faster we went, the less time you had to think and the more correct you were? Isn't that interesting? And every time you thought you made a mistake, your left brain went nag, 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 and then you went, oh no, wait a minute, I felt it was really this. And you correct yourself, right? You're correcting yourself with your right brain, not your left brain. And you're feeling that distance. Now what happens is every one of these has an emotion. A third has a certain emotion, a fifth has a certain emotion, and a seventh has an emotion. A fifth is very consonant. So when you're going da 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 da, there's no tension in that. But if I'm going da 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 da, that has a little bluesy, a little softness. That's the third. If I'm singing da 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 da, it sounds really harsh. That's a seventh. A seventh is harsh. A fifth is extremely consonant, and a third is kind of soft and pastel-like. So you can also recognize the tension in the interval when you're reading it. And then when you're playing, what's going to happen is you're going to start emotionally responding to these various intervals by having those feelings. They'll come as time goes on. But you'll notice that the more we did the flashcards, the less you thought about it and the more accurate you became. This is what I'm talking about, teaching people to read with their right brain instead of reading with their left brain. The left brain just gets in the goddamn way, and it makes more mistakes. The right brain is almost always right. It almost never makes a mistake. By the way, it's designed so we don't hurt ourselves. We have to have these automatic reflexes in case a leopard comes jumping out of a tree. You don't have time to think about it, right? You just go fight or flight, right? And you run. Okay, that's what we're doing here. So on my website, on the Strictly by Numbers, there is 39 videos. I'm taking you through those. Go through those until now. That we always keep the odds and evens separate at first, so you can learn to recognize. Now there's only 3 even intervals as well. There's the second, there's the fourth, and there's the sixth. We don't go any further than the octave. So there's small, medium, and large even numbers, small, medium, and large odd numbers. And when you get used to those, then you can start switching between the two. So later on, I do a thing where I interlace them. I interlace the even numbers and the odd numbers. And you'll find that you'll still be able to read them. So now how does that work here? Let's take a look. We are here in the key of E flat, which makes this bottom line here the number 1. And if I count backwards, 1, 7, 6, this number is 5.
Right.
So that starts on your D for playing in G, and you go D to G to get that 5, 1, right? Then you pop up to 4, 3, and come down to 1. Then again, you go down to the 5, 1, 4, 3, 1, 2. Low 5, 1, skip up to 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. 3, 4, 5, 1, 1. Now you see that from the line to the line? You see there's a line in between? That's a fifth.
Right.
You can see that. See from this line to that line is a third. So you can see that third. From this line to that line, see there's a line in between? There's your fifth. Okay. If we're looking for something like, where is a, we don't have a 7 here. Here. From this line, I have 2 lines, and then that one, there's your 7. So you see, you can recognize, if you keep this line in mind and measure everything from there, then you'll be able to see these intervals.
I see.
You don't read them linearly as we go through. We're not reading the intervals that way. We're reading every interval like it's a harmony. We're reading from that interval down to that line, from that interval to that line. And if you learn to do that, then what we're doing with the flashcards becomes very relevant. And that flashcards will help you learn to read faster and faster and faster. So this is one of my favorite songs, sung by Nat King Cole, Mr. Young, and of course Edward Hyman wrote this, but the guy who made this popular was Nat King Cole on his TV show when he played this. And it became so popular that his daughter, Natalie Cole, started her career by bringing up the video of her father singing this song, and she sang a duet with him. And then she got famous, right? So this song is a really important one. If I just ignore this flats, I know that's where 1 is. If I look, I don't see any sharps or flats coming up here, do I, on any of the notes? And if I look, I will not see any accidentals anywhere in the music whatsoever. So before I even number it, I know this is all diatonic. It's got to just be the numbers 1 through 7. There are no sharps, there are no flats in this piece. So once we know where 1 is, we can ignore this, and we only play what comes up as it comes up. So I try to find as many diatonic songs as I can. Let's start with this one. And again, we're going to play it in G. And we start on the low D, and then go up to the G. 4, then 1, 5, 1.
Okay.
That's your G.
Right. Okay. So that's C.
Yeah, or it could be, yeah, if you're playing in C. Yeah, that's your 1. And G is your 1. There you go up 4. You come down 1 note. You come down 2 notes. To 1. There you go. Now they're going to do it again. And down below 5.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
4, 1, 2. There you go. And back down to 5. Skip up to 6. 5, 4, 3, 2, 5, 1, 1, 1, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 2, 2, 4, 3, right, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, 4, 6, 5, and then repeat. 4, 3, 4. Now we go to the second ending. 5, 1, 1, 1. Now up to 7. 7, 6. Low 6. High 6. 5, 6, 4, 2. Low 5. 1. Not bad for first time through sight reading. Pretty good. And you wrestle with the numbers, but you'll get used. It'll flow. And you sight read something just you never saw before right off the bat. And you'll notice there were no sharps or flats.
Yeah.
So that made it all the diatonic numbers easy peasy. And what I suggest you do is find lots of songs that don't have any sharps or flats in the song, so it's all mostly diatonic. So you can just learn to do this, right? So I'm doing that again. Off. Off. That's the next phrase. Then next phrase. Next phrase. to be the end of a sentence, and then start your new phrase. Play to the end of that phrase, relax, grab the new phrase. You don't have to be ticking along with a metronome. You don't have to feel under pressure until you learn to play it. Then when you learn to play it and you're comfortable with it, then you can play it metronomically or play along with something or play along with the end of the box. But at first I would just take each phrase, play each phrase separately until it's smooth.
Could you just, I mean, I wasn't marking it when you were playing.
That's right.
So
So
I marked it.
we can see it.
You can see it.
Bum, 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 bum. So that must be right there, a breath mark. Right?
Yeah.
Then ba 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 dum. Ba 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 da 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 da. Ba 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 dum. Ba da 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 da. Ba da 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 da. You getting it? Ba 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 ba. And then back to the. So second inning. Ba 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 dum. Ba da da. So right there could be a ba da 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 da. So you could breathe here or here. I actually take a breath here. Play that note by itself, take another breath, because that note kind of just hangs out there. Da, 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 da.
Thank you.
See how it naturally breaks into phrases.
Now, I'm just trying to understand this now. I'm trying to, I see, I'm trying to formulate kind of an understanding of the advantages of this numbering system.
Mm-hmm.
And from my novice thing.
Well, the first advantage is you can spell 35 scales with it. Yeah, obviously.
You can play all the piano in the world.
It relies on relative pitch rather than perfect pitch. And most people have relative pitch. So this is a better method for people who have relative pitch. They call it movable do, by the way. This system is called solfege, or movable do. They used to use Latin. They would say do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, ti, la, so, fa, mi, re, do. And by the way, I looked up the Latin, and guess what it means? First verse, second verse, third verse. It means the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's what do, re, mi means.
Now why do you? Okay, so why? Now, why do you say, why, okay, so you're saying it favors relative pitch people,
Right.
Because it forces them to, they can think of the one as a reference
They
point.
can find a reference point which they need to hear, and then once they hear that reference point, it's basically in their memory, and then every other note is being compared to that position in their memory.
Right.
Now it's what your eyeball's doing, because you get that line in your eyeball, and then you're looking up and down to compare the distance between the next number and that line.
And so that
So
it automatically tells you what if you're comparing it with one, it's automatically telling you the interval.
Exactly. And if you learn to read the interval like I was just showing you with the flashcards, so instead of it being part of your left brain, it starts to be part of your right brain, and you don't even understand how it works. It just does it automatically. When you replace that with the fingering pattern, then the fingering pattern becomes subconscious. You see? So what happens is you learn the fingering pattern by using those exercises we did yesterday as a way of teaching your fingers where the numbers are and saying them to yourself. Teaches you how to make that fingering pattern subliminal, so it becomes automatically subconscious. Then what you do is you just use the musical numbers to conjure up what you want to conjure up. And again, what happens is it's allowing your right brain to do all that calculation for you subconsciously rather than having to do it consciously, which gets in the way. And it gets in the way of the musical expression more than anything else. When you're thinking with your right brain, you are lobotomizing yourself emotionally. That's what the left brain does, basically. It's a little professor, and it doesn't want to hear any emotional excuse about anything. So to teach yourself to read something with that little guy seems to be a way of stripping yourself from the emotion. what we want to do is find a way that we can express these numbers easily, where our eye and our ear are basically expressing the same language. What I'm hearing in distances in my ear, my eyeball sees as a distance, and then my hand goes for those fingering patterns automatically. So it's all about distance. And we're using the same language for all three senses. I tell people, if you came to me to study music and I taught you how to read music in French, and we would discuss it in German, and then to actually talk about the intervals, we'd speak in Scandinavian, and then we would talk about the rhythm if it was, Portuguese. What happens is you're developing five senses that have five different languages that can't talk to each other. That's what's happening under the method that's being used now. You're teaching each of your five senses a different way of regarding music. So what happens is they don't talk to each other. Your ear doesn't talk to your head doesn't talk to your heart doesn't talk back. These guys can't talk to each other. They're basically learn different nationalities. Okay, if I learn to read by interval or see it, learn to feel the intervals, and learn to sing the intervals, and learn to talk about the intervals, and I'm using one language for all those senses. And what happens is you get a thing called synesthesia. Do you know what synesthesia is? It's when one sense short circuits with another sense. You smell color, or you can taste sound. What happens is your senses short circuit. And so something that you would normally do with your nose, your eyes pick up on. And you can actually see smells. There are chefs who can smell the food and tell you exactly when it's done without a timer because it has a certain odor that they're used to. And they actually, in their head, they see it or they hear it. A little bell goes off. And they can go over and grab that food by the aroma.
Okay, I see one thing is that doing this like this, it would help you memorize the tune, wouldn't it?
It's a lot easier to memorize a new tune by number than it is by ABC. Because the number, we are so used to, in math, looking for patterns, that we automatically look for patterns when we use numbers. So you see patterns like the number 1 always ends a song. Nobody noticed that. For 35 years, I never noticed that every song ended on the number 1. I didn't know that until I numbered the song. And I was shocked to find out 99% of all songs end on the number 1. And that's how I was able to tell the difference between a major and minor, because if it ended on a 6, although we can only use major key signatures for describing both major and minor, okay, I could tell which was minor because it would end on the number 6. And I go, oh wait, this is really in minor. Then I could renumber it and take off. The nice thing is, if you're reading it in major and you use the major numbers and you're playing in minor, it still works out anyway. The interesting thing about the numbers is if you mislabel the numbers, they'll work anyway. If you're off by, if you label a 5 a 3, but you play the correct scale, it's going to come out correct anyway. So if every number that you wrote was off by 2, it wouldn't matter because when you play, that same pattern is going to generate the song. You see what I'm saying? So you actually have a better chance of getting it right by number and finding out, seeing errors, and you get to see patterns that you don't see with the ABC.
Right.
And these patterns, you start to categorize them like Felix's little magic bag. You stick these little things in there, and then when you want to improvise, you just pull out these little riffs. Right? You just play a little riff here, and then you play another one here, and cutting and pasting things together becomes pretty easy using numbers. The other advantage is it makes everything visually available.
So when do you memorize songs?
Yeah.
When you
know what I do now? I only memorize the first 2 numbers of the song.
The first 2 notes?
Yeah, you only remember the first 2 notes, or if there's a hard spot, like in this song, there's this skip where it goes 1 7 6 6 6 5. That I had to memorize. I didn't have to memorize anything else about the song except the 1 5.
Because it repeats. That helps.
Because my ear picks up on it. And what happens is if I'm saying the numbers 1 5 4 3, my ear hears it's going to go for a 4, so I go for. So what happens is I only memorize the first couple notes or a couple badass places in the song, and I don't need the rest because my ear will play it by ear anyway. And if I have it in the tune in me, the only time that doesn't happen is if I'm reading something I've never seen before. Then I have to read it by number very strictly. But once I hear what it sounds like, then I can like, oh, Walter, I can just kick back and say, well, it starts with, so when people say to me, Mary had a little lamb, the first thing that occurs to me is it starts on the number 3 and goes down. Now that's all I remember. Okay? So I start on, I'll start on 3, and I'll go down. Now my ear wants to come back up. So all I remembered was it started on 3 and went down. The rest I just did by ear. So this is really good ear training. You cannot get better ear training than to play these numbers and think them. And simply thinking the numbers as you're playing the song, your ear starts to recognize those, picks up on those distances automatically. You're making your ear intelligent by making it, by giving it some attention. By giving it the attention it's due, your ear just suddenly starts picking up on these. But it's really important that you think the number. And if you can sing it out loud, that's even better. Singing the numbers out loud. So once you know a song, I know how the song goes, so I'll just say 5 1 4 3 1 5 1 4 3 1 2 5 1 6 5 4 3 2, and I'm just singing the numbers. What I do is I look at it, see the numbers, then I try to sing the numbers, and then I play. So I have this thing I call see it, say it, play it. See it, say it, play it. See it, say it, play it. And it works. It works beautifully. Now let's just try another one. Let's go for another song here. This one, kind of a cute song, and it's a duet. It starts out on the low 5 again, but hops up to 3, so it goes. Right, then 5, then. So that's where the second ending. So it goes back there. From there, 5 3 2 1 5. Go to the second ending. 6 2 2 2 2 2. 5 3 2 1 5. 3 4 5 7. 1. you did the 7 with that one. Yeah, so you got it. So it's, I really can't stay, but baby, it's cold outside. I've got to go away, baby, it's cold outside. This evening has been hoping that you'll drop in, so very nice. I'll hold your hand, you're just like ice. So it's a duet, very nice. And again, you'll notice it's all diatonic except for one flat 6. That's all there is in this whole song, is a flat 6. Thank you. Now, just one more. Now what happens is, Funny Valentine, it starts on 6, so it looks like it's going to be minor. But if you look at the last note, it ends on 1 in E flat. So it starts out minor, but as it goes on, it starts going up and up and up and up in pitch until finally it lands in major. And then the rest of it just goes through. So if you start on 6, sharp. Then it goes to 4. Now it looks like a 4 flat, but all they're doing is just putting the flat back in. So you have a 4 sharp there, and then that's just sending it back to 4. Then 5. For some knobs, you go up. Then I like to drop down.
Yeah, that's a favorite song.
I think it's one of the most favorite, because on American Idol, almost every year someone sings this song. Every friggin' year somebody sings this song. And it really makes them or breaks them, because the thing is it's so open, you get one note off and you just blow the whole thing. Anyway, so you see again, it only has a single sharp. So now what I'm doing is, I'm going to start feeding you diatonic songs, play as many diatonic, then here's my Shining Hour. It only has a single 4 sharp in it. Okay. Neutral acts as a sharp if you have flats, because it's getting rid of the flat. So when you see a neutral, it's actually a sharp.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the opposite happens. If I have sharps, the neutral would flatten the note. So the neutral looks like a flat in a sharp key, and looks like a sharp in a flat key. It's the only one that changes gender. It's what do they call those? Cross-dressing. It's the only one that's cross-dressing. It's hermaphroditic. Okay. Then what happens is in this. Now, one of the reasons we're getting a 4 sharp is because when you're playing the 2 chord, it's 2, 4, 6, and it's naturally minor. But they want to make the 2 chord major, so you have to raise the 4 up to a 4 sharp. So the reason 4 sharp comes in here is they're trying to use a 2 major chord instead of a 2 minor chord. So they're raising that one note. Now, if I'm playing the 6th chord, which is 6, 1, 3, that's also minor. And if I want to make that major, I have to raise the 1 to a 1 sharp. And so what happens is, the next thing you'll see is songs that are totally diatonic except they have 1 sharp. And there what they're doing is they're taking the 6th chord and they're forcing the 6th chord to be major instead of minor. And that's why these sharps, and sharps, 4 sharp, 1 sharp, and 5 sharp are the 3 sharps that will start coming into music naturally. So then here's a song now that has a single flat. So everywhere it's normal, except it's got a 7 flat in here. And so it's diatonic, and again, there's only one alternate note for you to play, so you're not playing out of your comfort zone. Then the next song has a 4 sharp and a 7 flat. So again, you look for those as they. And again, if I look through here, I don't see anything. I don't see anything. I see nothing, 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 and then all of a sudden, right there, I see a sharp. So I look to see what number it is, and it's a 4. And I look here, and I see nothing, nothing, and there's an accidental there. That's a flat 7, and then here it's getting rid of it, going back to a regular 7. Okay? And there you go. So there's our 4 sharp and our flat 7. You see, everything else is going to be diatonic in the scale. Then here's a song where it now has a flat 7 and a flat 7. This is, you learn this song, people will cry every time you play this. I play this anywhere, and people just go because they remember Billie Holiday sang it. She was the one that made this popular. As a matter of fact, she wrote it, along with Herzog Jr. Herzog Jr., how do you pronounce his name? Herzog Jr.
Yeah, you know, I think I just came across something. I think that they just gave him an award, I think.
For posterity or something?
Well, now, didn't he help Duke Ellington?
Yeah.
And they said that, you know, I read this book about, I didn't read the whole thing, but I got about a third or half the way through. And it turns out, you know, Duke Ellington, he was kind of like the manager.
Right.
And, but he had all these people kind of working for him.
Oh, yeah.
And he kind of stole their ideas. You know?
Yeah. The most important, of course, was Bobby Strahan.
Yeah.
Bobby Strahan was a black gay man in New York.
Right, that's the guy.
And Duke Ellington hated gay people. But when he met him, he was such a brilliant songwriter, he said, I don't care what the hell you are, I want to work with you anyway. And he worked with him for the rest of his life.
But he didn't give much credit to him.
No, nobody did. As a matter of fact, if you go through jazz books, you will not see hardly Billy Strayhorn's name on any fucking thing. But
he's the one that got this big award.
Yeah, but you know what happened was Duke Ellington and Count Basie both, in the 30s, radio started playing songs on the radio, and there was no BMI at that time. There was only ASCAP. And ASCAP called for a general strike to prevent people from playing the stuff on the radio because of copyright infringements, right? So they asked all the musicians in the world to strike against the radio stations. Well, Duke Ellington and Count Basie didn't want to do that because they had the people that need money in the band. They didn't want to go on strike. They couldn't afford it, right? So what happened is they asked ASCAP, will you just please make an exception? And they said, no, we can't do that. So both Count Basie and Duke Ellington left ASCAP. They refused, and they left all the music with ASCAP, refused to ever play that music again, right? Count Basie opened up a publishing house and published his own music, and Duke Ellington opened up a recording studio and allowed musicians to come there and record and then publish with. So those two guys got together and created their own little ASCAP, right? Their own little network, and started, doing what ASCAP did. Well, it turned out that they were so much of ASCAP's money that ASCAP was going fucking broke and couldn't afford for those guys to break away. So they asked them if they would work with them, and they said only on one condition, that you let the guys on the radio play our shit. So they formed a thing called the BMI, the Broadcast Music Industry, and they became a part of ASCAP. And then, so what Duke Ellington and Count Basie did is they said, we're not going to play any of our old music anymore. You can keep it, you can throw it in the trash. They went and hired Billy Strayhorn. And in 2 weeks, on a train going from New York to Los Angeles, at that time they were on the train, they wrote every song that Duke Ellington and Count Basie was famous for after that. A-Train, all these great, great works. In the Mood, Mood Indigo, all that stuff was written by Billy Strayhorn, who just got, orchestration credit, essentially, for it, right? And then what happened is, Count Basie sort of went off onto his own thing and started hanging out with people like Stan Kenyon, Bill Russo, and those composers who were composing music with music notes on the staff. And Duke Ellington went off with Bobby Strahan and other people and just started bringing more and more people in his orchestra, and then he became kind of a manager and managed the group rather than actually playing all the time. It was brilliant. And Bobby stayed with him until the day he died, and Bobby never got credit. There's one song in all of those jazz books. you look up, it's called Lush Life. And I don't know any musician who can play the goddamn thing because it's so difficult harmonically. And it's the genius, the absolute genius of Billy to watch that song Lush Life and try to play it. And you ask any jazz musician, they'll go, oh, who the fuck can play that? Who can sing that song? That's so brilliant and so hard and yet so easy when it's done right. You can't, it took me almost 2 weeks to number the song and analyze it. It was that difficult, and I finally nailed it. And one of my students, Paul, picked it up because he's sort of the way you like Tony, he likes Billy. So, and he's always looking for things that have Billy's name on it because Billy never got credit for anything, you know. And so he's finding Billy. So when he saw Lush Life, oh my God, he just went for it, and that's all he played for a year. He played Lush Life over and over and over and over, along with other things, for a year until he's got it down. This guy can play Lush Life and just melt your heart. It's just gorgeous.
Well, I'll have to write that down.
Poor Billy it's called Lush Life. Now, just quickly, I want to show you something I do. You see, I buy these books called the Real.
Yeah, I've got those.
But the vocal book.
Oh, okay.
There's two of them. There's volume 1 and volume 2. They come with the words to the song.
Okay.
So as you play the song, you're thinking to yourself, when I fall in love, it will be forever. And you can see where the commas come from. They're the ends of those phrases. So all that's in here. Now the first thing I do is I go through the book, I take it out to a restaurant, and I look through the songs, and I write down in the index what the key is. So when I look at the index, I can tell what key it's in, rather than having to go there and find it. So let's say I want to one day practice reading things in G. So what I'll do is I'll look for everything that's in the key of G. And I go, oh, there's one, G, Blue Skies 42, and I'll go to that and I'll read that. And then I'll go and find another one that's in G, and another one, okay? Then what I did is after I found all these, I tabbed them with different colors. So here, the blue ones, these purple ones, are everything in E flat, right? These green ones are, I think are, yeah, they're all C. The green ones are C. I think these are G, and these are an F. And so by color coordinating, if I want to, I just play all the green ones, and I'm playing all in one key. And then I can practice my reading without writing the numbers down on the page, since they're all, I'm going to read everything in the key of G all day today. After about 4 or 5 songs, my eyeball catches on, and I just keep doing it. So the jazz books that you already have, write the name of the key next to the song in the index, so you don't have to go through the book to find the key. And one way to practice reading is to just sit down and say, today I'm just going to read, for this week, I'm going to read everything I can find in the key of G. And then you just number G, and you just start you get your number pattern like this. You go, okay, here's my G number pattern. And then you play 5, 6, 7 songs that are in the key of G, one after another, after another, after another. And what will happen is your eyeball will start to see it. The numbers will just start popping up in your head. Now, tomorrow, what we're going to do when we get together is we're going to just start playing these songs, okay? So we'll look them over a little bit, and we're just going to play through songs tomorrow. And then Monday, when you come back, we're just going to play through songs, okay? So you can get used to this thing. And we're going to also play in, right now we're doing G. We'll stay in G stay in one key. But G and C are good keys for you to learn to play, because if the song goes from 1 to 1, you can play it in C, and if it goes from 5 to 5, you can play it in G. And so that's every condition that's going to pop up. And if you just play those 2 scales over and over, and no matter what you're reading, what key it's in, translate it into those 2 keys, and the more you stay in those keys, the more chops you're going to develop, Walter. You see, if you stay in one key really long, you're going to develop all the kinds of technical things you need to do to be an expert, right? And you'll develop these really expert ways of playing in one key very comfortably, and if you keep changing keys all the time, you're never going to get, it's never going to become muscle memory. So I recommend finding 2 keys that you can play in. Play in those 2 keys, all your exercises in those 2 keys. Play every song you know in those 2 keys, and every time you find something that's in a different key, number it so you can play it in that key. So you get used to seeing music that's written in a different key and playing it in your G. So you're automatically transposing by just using the numbers. And after a while, it gets to be so normal, you forget you're doing it. And I found that it does, of all the 12 keys that are out there, any of them can be numbered and played in just the key of G. And that way you're going to develop chops a lot faster. Okay? The longer you stay in C and G, the easier it's going to be to play everything.
Now, I was just thinking now in terms of, given that this is a B flat,
Right.
the next one,
You'll be playing in B flat, that C will be B flat, and your G will be the key of F.
Right.
And the reason for that is they're good places for you to play with horns. Otherwise, you can't. You'll only be able to play with woodwinds and the keyboard.
Now, you were saying that the two, you said something about B flat and E flat, or something.
B flat and F are the two keys that are played by horn players, because that would be their G and their C. See, their G and their C is B flat and F, just like yours. So by playing those are their easiest fingering patterns. They learn to play in C first. Almost every trumpet player I know learns to play in C first, and then they learn the G scale. So those two keys are the easiest for them to play, and they're actually sounding in B flat and F. Concert pitch would be B flat and F.
Oh, okay. So in other words, they're
they have the same problem you have.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So in other words, they're playing in, this is concert.
Right.
Concert B flat and F.
Right.
Okay.
Which would be their C and G scale,
Yeah,
just like
okay.
yours.
Okay.
And since those fingering patterns are easier for horns, you're better off playing in those keys with them, especially if they're beginners and they just want to get started. Start them off with the C scale, and that's really easy for them to play. Because what happens with the horns is things like when you start adding sharps, the fingering patterns start to become more complicated, where you have to, instead of just holding down one bell, you've got to hold down 2 or 3 bells for the notes. So what happens is they become more and more complicated as you go further. The C, I think, is the easiest fingering pattern. You only need 2 fingers to play C. And for G, they only add the 3rd finger in one place. So those are easier fingering patterns for those guys to play. And they would appreciate it because, a trumpet player loves to play with a sax player. And especially your soprano sax, it's in the same range as the trumpet. Right. Trombone players like to play with tenor saxes because, again, they're in the same bandwidth. So you know the exercise that you have to do for your ear training, right?
Right.
And I just go walk up and down the street singing 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6, 1, 7, 1, 1, 1, 7, 1, 6, 1, 5, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 1. That's it. Got it. It's the one exercise that will fix everything for you. So tonight, the Sacred Ground